Could this eerie photo solve a decades-old missing persons case? It was the end of February 2005 at Ballyhalbert Caravan Park in Northern Ireland. Lisa Dorian was just 25 years old at the time and was from Bangor. She worked in a retail store and was a lovely girl, obviously incredibly beautiful too. She was a really sociable girl. She loved going out, having a drink with her friends, having a laugh, and just being young and free. So Lisa's plans for that day was to go to an offie, get some bevs, and then go to this caravan park for like a gathering / party. This was Lisa dressed up for that exact night, looking gorge. Around 12 people were originally at this gathering. I mean, it wasn't big at all. It was literally a caravan party, so there's only so many people you can invite. And one of them was 17-year-old Mark Lovett. Now, it made sense for him to be there because he knew all of the guys that were at the party. He also worked as the groundsman at that particular caravan park. So as the night went on, a few people started to leave in like dribs and drabs, until it was literally just Lisa and Mark left. It wasn't until the 1st of March, days later, that Lisa's flatmate ended up calling Lisa's sister Joanne and being like, "Have you heard from Lisa?" She was like, "No, why, haven't you?" And the friend was like, "No, she's not come back since she went off to that party and I'm getting really worried now." Now, this was obviously over 20 years ago. It was back when we didn't really have like smartphones. We weren't like keeping tabs on people like you can do today. You couldn't see when people are active online and things like that. Everybody kept calling Lisa, texting, but there was no reply. And back in those days, you didn't even see when somebody had like read the message or delivered. It just kind of went off into the ether. Police soon got involved and everybody was searching for the missing girl, as you would expect. And things only got more worrying when police spoke to Mark. In what they described as an emotionally distressed and tearful state, Mark told them that they'd both been taking substances that night. Now, I don't know exactly what, but Mark said that they were tripping a little bit. He said at around 4:45 a.m. they suddenly heard loud noises and saw bright lights flashing, and they got really spooked by this. And he said they like went out of the caravan and ran off in separate directions, and there wasn't much lighting, so he couldn't really see which way she went. And Lisa has never been seen alive since. 2 weeks after she vanished, police stopped considering this a missing persons investigation and they changed it to a murder investigation. All her belongings had remained in that caravan after that night. She didn't take a single thing with her, and there was just zero proof that she was alive, coupled with the fact that everybody at the party seemed to want nothing to do with this investigation, like they weren't being cooperative. Rumours started swirling around and it was getting really sketchy. Nobody else at the caravan park that night reported seeing bright lights and hearing loud noises. Were they tripping? Or was this made up? Police arrested a bunch of people in connection with this presumed murder, but kept having to release them because they just didn't have anything concrete. Police searched the caravan itself, and although they found no evidence of blood or bodily fluids, you could kill somebody without creating a bunch of blood. Family later decided, let's release the eerie photo of inside that caravan and see if it sparks somebody's conscience somewhere. See if it brings back a memory. It's the last place she was known to be before she went missing. And even though this happened decades ago, some very interesting information has recently come to light. So in February this year, a 40-year-old woman in Bangor and a 42-year-old man in Scotland were arrested on suspicion of murder, assisting offenders, withholding information, and preventing a lawful burial. That feels like the police have got more information than we know. The woman was the ex-girlfriend of a convicted substance dealer who had seen Lisa around the time of the disappearance. The man was a violent career criminal with previous convictions for sea dealing, assault, and possession of a weapon. They were released on bail the next day, but then another 2 men were arrested in quick succession for assisting offenders and withholding information. Police can't just arrest people off nothing. Like, they surely must have something. And one of those men was also arrested for Lisa's murder. Although nothing is concrete, it does feel like we're getting some kind of traction with this case. A lot of people keep getting arrested, bailed, and then released, but it definitely feels like police have intel. Do you think A, we're ever going to solve this case, and B, what do you think the police might have?
8 months after he disappeared, this woman would find the body of her husband inside their house. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the case of Richard Mage. 56-year-old Richard and 50-year-old Jennifer had been married for 19 years. Richard was the epitome of a family man. He absolutely loved spending time with his family, including his 3 children and his 3 grandchildren. When he wasn't working, helping people with additional needs get training and job opportunities, he was at home relaxing, watching NASCAR, hockey, or baseball. He was also lovingly given the name Mr. Fix-It because he was a handyman who could do everything. Throughout 2022, Richard had been dealing with a huge amount of stress related to other family issues, and he was very open to Jennifer about how he was feeling and how this stress was affecting him, how it was impacting his mental health, but Richard was always the type of person who was able to bring himself back out of that black hole and get himself back on his feet, seeking out help and support whenever he needed it. On the 26th of April 2022, Richard rang Jennifer while she was at work and told her that he wasn't really feeling that good, and so he was going to be heading back to their home in Troy, Illinois. A couple of hours later, when Jennifer returned back home, she would see her husband's truck parked on their driveway, and when she went into the house, she was expected to be greeted by him, but instead there was an eerie silence. She found his wallet and his car keys on the side, but Richard was nowhere to be seen. Despite this being a little bit strange, Jennifer just tried to brush it off, thinking that he must have wanted a little bit of fresh air, and took himself out for a quick walk. When Richard still hadn't returned home by the following afternoon, Jennifer could wait no more, and so she contacted the police to report her husband missing. When the officers arrived, they began, or at least they tried to start a search within the house. Richard was a man who didn't like to throw anything away. The police would describe the inside of the home as being like a hoarder home. There was stuff and rubbish piled and scattered everywhere. While conducting their search, they would get a very distinct smell, which they thought was sewage. They couldn't find exactly where this smell was coming from, and when they couldn't find the source of it, they just put it down to all of the rubbish being in the house. They found absolutely no sign of Richard on this search or any of the other searches that they conducted. Over the next few weeks, Jennifer would do her own digging. She combed through paperwork and diaries to see if there was any hint on where Richard could have gone, if he had written something down somewhere. They put up missing person posters, police followed up on any and all tips that they were given, hoping that one of them would help them track Richard down. But to no avail, it was like he had completely disappeared. Soon the neighbours and even the postman began complaining of a really foul smell that was radiating from the Major's home. Because the police initially thought that it was sewage, they got a sewer pipe replaced by a plumber, but even that didn't help. Jennifer would say that she didn't find the smell overwhelming, but her neighbours and the postman both thought that it was. 8 months after the disappearance of Richard Meach, on the 11th of December 2022, in a bid to try and raise her spirits a little bit, Jennifer decided that she was going to decorate for Christmas. She was ready to prepare for her first Christmas without her husband. She went into a cupboard underneath their stairs looking for a big bag that had all of their Christmas ornaments in, and that is when she discovered the mummified remains of Richard Meach, who had very clearly taken his own life. Police were called and Richard's body was taken for autopsy, where no sign of foul play was discovered. The family of Richard felt absolutely furious because for 8 months they had no idea where their loved one was, what had happened to him, what was going on, if he was dead or if he was alive, and that entire time he was under the stairs. How was he never discovered during any of the police searches? The cupboard underneath the stairs was only accessible by going through one door and then through into another, and it was very clearly missed by the police each and every single time.
People thought it was amazing that they got their kidnapped baby back. It was a happy ending, right? Well, actually, it was only the start of the nightmare. It was April 1964 in Chicago. Dora Frosnack could not have been happier. She'd just given birth in the hospital to little baby Paul. She was absolutely ecstatic, just in her little newborn bubble, and couldn't wait to take her baby home. But before she could even leave hospital, her baby was snatched from her. When baby Paul was just 1 day old, a woman disguised in a nurse's uniform came up to Dora and was like, "Oh, I just need to take your baby. The doctor just needs to examine him." She thought nothing of it and just handed the child over, as you would. It was only a little while later when Dora said to the other staff members, like, "Where's that nurse with my baby?" that the other staff members were like, "What nurse?" As you can imagine, this case went absolutely wild. The baby snatcher story was all over the news and everybody was out in force trying to find the child. 600 homes were frantically searched in the first day alone. The devastated parents did a press conference absolutely begging for their child to be returned. And as you can imagine, this was kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack. I mean, it was a very young baby. The baby itself didn't know that he was missing. The parents had only just met him, so they barely even knew what he looked like. Police only really had Paul's blood type and ear shape to go off, and it would be a year-long agonizing search with no news. Then a miracle happened. Dora got a phone call. Police found an abandoned child in New Jersey, and they were like, "We want you to come and tell us whether this is your child." And Dora saw the baby. She was like, "Oh my God, yes, that's baby Paul." She was like, "You've got my baby back." And she could not believe their luck. And that was the end of it for 10 years. Until one Christmas when he was hunting for presents. 10-year-old Paul found this little box and thought he'd hit the jackpot. He was like, "Great, this must be where my presents are hidden." But what was inside of that box was actually hundreds of newspaper clippings and pictures of a little baby. Paul said to his parents, like, "What's all this about missing baby Paul? Was I missing?" Dora was very quick to slam the box shut. She said, "Yep, you were missing before, but we found you, we love you, and that's all you need to know." But that then was etched in Paul's mind, and he had doubts. For almost 40 years, Paul carried that in the back of his mind, this feeling that maybe he wasn't who he thought he was. And in 2012, he actually decided to check. He thought, once and for all, I need to find out if I'm really this baby that was missing. So he did a DNA test. The parents reluctantly agreed, and it came back that Paul was not Paul after all. He was not biologically related to either of the people that he thought were his biological parents. And I want to know what you guys think of the parents' reaction. They were actually furious with him and refused to speak to him for a year. It's not his fault that he's not the baby that you lost. But the big questions were, okay, if I'm not Paul, who am I? And also, where is original baby Paul? So Paul, not Paul, decided to try and find the truth. And after doing some digging in 2015, he actually found out that he was born a boy called Jack. But this then became a triple disappearance. Jack had a twin sister named Jill. Both Jack and Jill went missing as babies. Turns out their parents were awful parents, and they both had drink problems, and they were both violent. Meanwhile, the FBI ended up reopening the case of missing baby Paul, and were now also looking for missing baby Jill. It ended up being another home DNA test that actually revealed where the real Paul was. He was living as Kevin Beatty, but his mum had already passed away, so the mystery kind of remained as to how the mum ended up with baby Paul. Had she been the kidnapper all along? What do you think? I need to know. Tragically though, in 2019, Dora arranged to meet with her original baby Paul, biological baby Paul, who was now living as Kevin, but before they could actually reunite, Kevin died of cancer. And I guess you're wondering at this point, okay, so what about Jill? Well, Jill is still missing. Her brother continues to look for her, and you guys could actually help solve the case. By taking home DNA tests and uploading your information to GEDmatch, we can all actually contribute to helping solve these missing people's cases.
This woman finds her perfect doppelganger and then unalives her. Her name is Sharaban, and she's 25 years old, living in Germany as a beautician. And on the surface, everything seems normal, but behind closed doors, things are completely falling apart. She's got a failed marriage, family drama, and a new boyfriend named Shakir, who's about to help her do something seriously insane. Because instead of dealing with her problems like a normal human being, Sharaban decides that the only logical solution is to just disappear. Like vanish completely and start a whole new life somewhere else where nobody knows who she is. But here's the thing, you can't just disappear. I mean, there are cameras everywhere, digital footprints following you around, and people who will notice that you're gone, unless you're dead. And that's when Sharaban's like, I have an idea. I'm going to fake my own death. But not just any death, she needs it to be believable, which means she needs an actual body. But this is where things get really dark, because Sharaban realizes that she needs to find someone who looks exactly like her, so that when people find the body, they'll immediately think it's her. But I'm sure you're probably sitting there wondering, where do you even find your own doppelganger? Like, where do you shop for that? Well, Sharaban figured it out, and the answer is Instagram. So she creates a fake account and starts scrolling through German beauty influencers, searching for someone with her exact face, her build, her hair, everything. And after what I assume was days of creepy stalking, she actually finds her perfect match. Her name is Khadija, and I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but she's this gorgeous beauty vlogger, and when I tell you they look identical, I mean it. Like, side by side, you genuinely cannot tell them apart. Okay, maybe I'm dragging it a bit, but you still get the point. So now Sheriban has her target locked in, but she still got another problem. How exactly do you lure someone to their death without seeming suspicious? Well, Sheriban comes up with a solution for that as well. She creates another fake account, this time pretending to be connected to some famous rapper. And so she slides into Khadija's DMs, all friendly, and she offers her this amazing opportunity to be in a music video. And Khadija's excited at first because, I mean, who wouldn't be? This could be a huge opportunity for her career, but something in her gut was screaming that this feels like a scam. So Khadija actually decides to verify this whole thing before agreeing to anything. So she messages the rapper directly and she asks him, hey, is this legit? Am I being offered to be in a music video for you? And the rapper responds like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. This is completely fake. So Khadija declines the offer and blocks the account. So now crisis averted, right? She just dodged a literal bullet. Except Sheriban isn't the type to give up that easily because she is fully committed to this insane plan. So 2 days later, she tries again with a completely new approach and a brand new fake account. This time she pretends to be some high-end salon offering Khadija cosmetic treatments in exchange for a simple Instagram post about their services. And this actually sounds totally legit because influencers collabs like this happen pretty often in the beauty world. So Khadija, thinking this is just a normal business opportunity, agrees to it and they set up an appointment for August 16th, 2022. And so that afternoon, Sheriban and her boyfriend Shakir pull up to Khadija's apartment building to pick her up for this fake appointment. And at first, everything seemed completely fine and normal. They're chatting, there's music playing, everyone is just vibing. Khadija's probably thinking, wow, these are really nice salon people. But she has absolutely no idea that she is sitting in a car with two people who are literally about to murder her. Like, that is actually terrifying. And I'm sure at this point, Khadija's alarm bells are going off like, hi, exactly where are we going? I thought this was a salon appointment. But they probably make up some random excuse to keep her calm, like, oh yeah, the salon just moved to another location out here, or whatever lies they come up with. So deep in the woods, far away from anyone who could hear anything, Shakir finally stops the car. And they tell Khadija that she needs to step outside just for a second. But the moment she steps out of that car, bam, they attack her from behind. They strike her so hard that she immediately falls to the ground. And then while she's lying there, probably screaming and terrified, they pull out knives and start stabbing her over and over again. 56 times to be exact. They stabbed her so many times that her face became completely unrecognizable, which I guess was part of their sick plan because it would be harder to spot the difference if there was no face to look at. But here's where their plan gets even more calculated and disgusting. So after they finish, they pick up Khadija's body, they load it into the back of their car, and they drive to this really quiet residential area that happens to be near Sheriban's house. She pulls out her phone and texts her parents, who just so happen to be driving into town that day to visit her, and she tells them that she's meeting up with her ex-husband to talk. Then she sends them the exact location of where she is, but it's actually the spot that they had left the car at with Khadija's body inside. Because I'm guessing Sheriban wanted everyone to think that her ex-husband did this to her, that they got into some huge fight and he snapped and unalived her. So later that evening, her poor parents arrive at the location that their daughter had texted them, and as expected, they find the car sitting there, and when they look inside, there is a body that looks exactly like their daughter, and they're absolutely devastated. Like, their world just shattered. So they immediately call the police in a panic. And so when police officers arrive at the scene and examine the body, they obviously believe it. They're fully convinced that this is Sheriban lying dead in that car. So for an entire day, their completely deranged plan actually works perfectly. Everyone genuinely thinks that Sheriban is dead. I mean, her family is mourning and is already planning her funeral. Meanwhile, she's probably out here hiding somewhere thinking that she's some kind of criminal mastermind who just pulled off the perfect crime. Until the next day rolls around and the autopsy results come back from the medical examiner. These investigators are reading through the report and they see something that makes absolutely zero sense. The DNA doesn't match Sheriban's records at all. And when it finally clicks to them, they realize this isn't Sheriban's body, it's someone else's entirely. And suddenly, this light bulb is going off in their head and they realize Sheriban literally orchestrated her own fake death by finding and murdering someone who looks exactly like her, aka Khadija. So police immediately issue a warrant for her arrest and they start searching for both her and Shakir. But thankfully, we're dealing with two low IQ individuals, so it didn't take long at all. Both of them were caught and arrested and sent to prison for the rest of their lives. Anyways, that is all I have for today. Love yourself, and if you don't, I will. Mwah, group hug.
She killed her uncle and then starred in a horror movie where she played a killer. This actually might be one of the most insane true crime cases that you have likely never heard of. It's a little complicated. There's a lot of family drama. This is Shane Moore. Unfortunately, there's not much known about Shane's early life. He was born in 1953 in New Jersey. After high school, he moved to California to study law and eventually opened up his own antique bookstore. Shane's parents were living on their own ranch in Oregon. Eventually, Shane's father got really sick and Shane moved to Oregon to live on their ranch and help out his parents. And he really ended up doing everything around the ranch to help support his parents. Shane is really being the most supportive and loyal son ever. And later that same year, Shane's younger sister Kelly and Kelly's children also ended up moving to Oregon. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Kelly and her kids. Kelly was a successful lawyer living in LA when she met her husband, an actor named Dan Reed. Together, they co-authored a crime novel, a little ironic. And the book was so successful that it was adapted into a TV movie, and this was honestly like the height of both of their careers. After having 3 children together and 2 failed careers, they ended up getting a divorce. Kelly was awarded full custody and she moved with her kids to Oregon to be closer to her parents. Kelly had a favorite child, which was her eldest daughter named Aisling Tucker Reed, who just went by her middle name Tucker. After moving to Oregon, Kelly's parents bought her and her kids a house and were also fully financially supporting them. Kelly just stopped working and was living off of the monthly allowance that her elderly mother and her sick father were giving her. Kelly was certain that her daughter Tucker was destined to be a famous actress. She was very much a stage mom, and she would take Tucker to all the acting lessons and all the auditions at the local theater. And she would tell all of her friends that she was going to be set for life when her daughter Tucker became a famous actress. I didn't know where to put this in, so I'm just going to throw it in here. Around the time that Tucker was 18 years old, her mother Kelly, and her younger sister all co-authored a young adult fantasy book series called Amber House. I've never heard of it. Let me know if you have. Tucker moved to LA after high school to make it big. But very quickly, she dropped out of college and moved back to Oregon after she got sued by her ex-boyfriend because she was accusing him of SA. So right now, it's around 2013, and the relationship between Tucker, her mom Kelly, and Kelly's older brother Shane just absolutely goes down the drain. At this point, their father had unfortunately passed away, and even though Shane and Kelly had like 3 other siblings, they were set to inherit, just the 2 of them, everything after their mom passed. So Shane and Kelly would like split everything down the middle. And around this time, Kelly is just like really taking advantage of their elderly mother, mainly financially, and Shane did not like that his sister was doing this to their mother. And it would cause a lot of tension and really heated arguments. And it was during one of these sibling arguments, Shane and Kelly were fighting, and Shane threw something, and he says that he threw it out of frustration. He wasn't meaning to actually hit anyone, but he accidentally threw this object and it hit Tucker. Tucker and Kelly did not think that this was an accident, and they pressed charges against Shane. And a protection order was put in place where Shane couldn't get in like a certain distance of Kelly and Tucker. After this, Kelly ended up writing a new will for their mother without their mother's knowledge, excluding Shane from the inheritance. Shane found out about this, their mother took Shane's side, and instead, Shane and their mother were going to change the inheritance in a way that would protect Shane and kind of screw over Kelly. And that brings us to the day that Shane died. On July 26, 2016, a public notary named Carla came to Shane and Kelly's mother's ranch. And if you don't know what a public notary is, I didn't know either. So I Googled it, and it's an official appointed by the state to act as an impartial witness in preventing fraud during the signing of documents. So this public notary named Carla came to the ranch so she could help Kelly and Shane's mom sign this new deed that would protect Shane's inheritance. And what happens next is according to Kelly and Tucker. Kelly is fighting with the public notary Carla, who's just there trying to do her job. Kelly is throwing an absolute fit. She's screaming that her mom is not signing the document, and she actually tears it up. And in this chaos, Shane overhears and he comes to the front door trying to barge himself into the room. He's freaking out, he's super aggressive, so Kelly goes to the door to try and stop Shane from getting in. Because remember, there's a protection order, so he's not supposed to get too close to them. And that's when Kelly's daughter Tucker pulls out a weapon that was hidden under a towel on the table and shoots her uncle Shane. Carla, the lady that's there just trying to do her job, calls 911. Eventually, Kelly gets on the phone with the 911 operator and she's telling the operator that she wants her brother to die. You can hear her on the call just screaming at Shane, die, 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 over and over again, while Shane is like in agony, screaming in pain in his final moments. And Shane tragically died before the ambulance could even get there. In questioning, Kelly just kept saying that she was happy that her brother was dead. At the station, Tucker, who just shot and killed her uncle, was claiming that it was self-defense because she truly believed that her and her mother were in danger because Shane was violent. And she actually said that her and her mother hid the weapon on the table because they had a feeling that he was going to try and do something. She also said that she didn't mean to shoot Shane, that she actually didn't even know how to use a weapon, and she was just using it to try and like scare him.
Do you make a conscious decision to fire the gun?
I don't think, no.
Tell me about that.
Because to fire a gun, I've always thought you had to cock a gun. This gun doesn't do that. It just fired.
But what Tucker didn't know was that the officers knew that Tucker knew how to use a weapon. Turns out that exact same day, the day that Shane died, the day that he was killed, he also called 911 because Tucker was on the property firing shots, a little target practice, and he was scared for his safety.
Hi, I was hoping I could get a sheriff out here. I'm expecting a notary public to be here at 2 o'clock to 2:30. And I don't want any trouble with my sister's over in the house. Her kid fired off a gun over there this morning. I'm afraid my sister's going to try to stop the notary public, and that's what I'm afraid of, and I don't want any trouble.
It's so chilling that he had a feeling like something was going to happen. And just for the record, no officers actually ended up going to the property because they did not take Shane's call serious. Tucker was charged with manslaughter but was released on bond pending her trial. And while awaiting trial, after killing a member of her own family, Tucker went on to star in a horror movie. She auditioned and got the lead role in the indie horror movie From the Dark. And she auditioned under the fake name Wynn Reed, so no one on set actually had any idea that she was waiting trial for murder. Even more sinister than that, her character actually shoots and kills someone in the movie, and it's debated amongst the other characters whether or not she killed them in self-defense or not. And after filming the movie, Tucker's manslaughter charge was actually upgraded to murder, and she was held in prison without bail, and that was because, and listen to this, Tucker's defense team found evidence, a video that they thought proved that Tucker killed Shane in self-defense when it in fact proved the opposite. Tucker actually used her phone to film the exact moment that she killed Shane. She had her phone set up, filming everything secretly. And the video completely contradicts her and her mother's story that I told you earlier. In the video, they're still arguing about the document, and Shane does come up to the front porch because he hears all this commotion and he wants to make sure that everything's okay. And Kelly does run to the door, but instead of their story of Shane trying to smash himself into the room, in the video it shows that Shane is just standing on the front porch feet away from the door, just trying to talk to his sister, when Tucker pulls out a weapon and shoots and kills him, proving that no one was actually in danger during that moment.
Shane needs to stay away from the property.
Oh, this is a grantee?
So do you know him?
Oh, this is not, no, this is not Gary's son.
Do you know anything about this?
No,
It was
that's
actually,
not Gary's son.
yes, this man, he threatened this woman's life, my mother, unless she signed that paper.
Unless my mother signed.
This is up to you.
Yeah, she's not signing a
You have to
grantee.
do it on
She's
your
not
own.
signing a grantee. She's not, I was told it wasn't, she was told it was an inheritance, a will.
An addendum to her will.
A will. This is a grantee. You're not signing a grantee, Mother. No, I
Do you understand what a grantee is?
He's coming into the house. God damn it. She's not signing a grantee, Shane. I thought it was a will. She's not signing a grantee. Yeah.
You son of a bitch!
She's not signing a grantee. It's her property.
She said she signed it.
Yeah, if you told her.
And it really did seem to the investigators and the prosecution that Tucker and her mother, Kelly, planned all of this. The fact that Tucker was like doing target practice earlier that day, that they had the weapon hidden on the table just ready to go. And in the video, you can hear Tucker turning to her mother, Kelly, and saying right after she just shot Shane, "You told me I could do it." Eventually, Tucker Reed took a plea deal where she pled guilty to manslaughter and received only 6 years in prison. And she was released already in November of 2024, meaning that she's out there right now, a free person. I'm really interested to hear all your thoughts on this case. I fear that like maybe it was a little confusing. There was a lot of information in this case, but I did my best to piece it together. I feel like in the way that makes the most sense in like a 10-minute long video. Shane truly seemed like a really good son, doing his best to help his parents. And it's such a shame because money really is evil and it just tears families apart. And Shane is no longer here. For what reason? So you could get more in your inheritance, allegedly. Extremely interested to hear all your thoughts on this case. While you're in the comments leaving me all your thoughts, please remember to be respectful because this really is Shane Moore's story. So please just always remember to be respectful because you have no clue who could be in the comments. Someone that actually knew and loved Shane in real life could be in the comments. You have no idea. So please always remember to be respectful. While you're in the comments, please let me know what case you want to see me cover next. Thank you to everyone that suggested that we cover this case, and I will see you guys all next time in my next video. Please be a good person to your fellow person, and please stay safe.
He stabbed his twin sister to death while she was sleeping in her bed, but he claimed that he was sleepwalking while he did it and so wasn't responsible. I want to know if you believe him or not, so after watching this video, comment down below and let me know. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the murder of Megan Elliott. This case takes place in Houston, Texas in 2021. Twins Megan and Benjamin Elliott were 17 years old, living with their parents Michael and Kathy. Megan had recently been diagnosed with autism, and so this was something new that she was navigating. She was extremely creative, she loved making art, and she would make YouTube videos of her making art. She would also draw and write poems. She was extremely creative. She was a little bit on the reserved side, and so she had quite a lot of online friends. However, in real life, her best friend was her brother Benjamin. He was almost like a protector for her. If she felt uncomfortable, he would be the person that she would go to. Benjamin was described as someone who was very soft-spoken, he was funny, he was extremely smart and wanted to get into engineering. He also enjoyed gaming, and the siblings were said to be extremely close. In general, the Elliott family were considered a very close bonded family. They enjoyed doing things together, such as going out camping, and so when Megan was murdered, this sent shockwaves of disbelief and devastation throughout the family and the community. In late September 2021, Benjamin was playing an online game when he noticed inside this game this specific knife that he became very interested in. The Elliots actually had a really big knife collection because they would go out camping, and Kathy worked for the Girl Scouts, and so when Benjamin expressed interest in this knife that he had seen on the game to his stay-at-home dad Michael realised that they already owned a knife that was extremely similar. He went and he dug it out and then gifted it to his 17-year-old son. This was an Air Force survival type knife, and just hours later, Benjamin would go on to do the unthinkable with it. At 4:41 a.m. on the 29th of September, 911 would receive a phone call from Benjamin, who was talking to them in a whispery but very clearly panicked tone. He told the operator, quote, "I just killed my sister. I thought it was a dream. I took my knife and stabbed her. Please, I don't want her to die." The operator then tells Benjamin that he has to go and wake up his parents before attempting CPR, which the operator spoke him through. When the paramedics arrived, he was still in the process of doing CPR on Megan. However, they noticed that she was already grey in colour. She had been stabbed twice in the neck. One of the wounds were 4 inches deep, and it actually severed her jugular vein, which is an injury that would have killed her within minutes. Strangely, a pillow was discovered over Megan's face. Because of the injury, it would have been expected that when Benjamin removed the knife, blood would have squirted out and splattered the walls. But that didn't happen. Blood was only found on the pillow and seeped into Megan's mattress. Benjamin was immediately put into handcuffs and placed in the back of a police car, where he sat for 3 hours until he was taken to the station for questioning. In the meantime, Kathy and Michael inside of the home were pleading with the officers to let them see Megan, to let them go to her, but the officers wouldn't let them. They couldn't. It was a crime scene. One of the first phone calls that they made would be to a family friend who also just happened to be a solicitor. During his questioning at the station, Benjamin seemed very calm and non-frantic. He did ask about Megan, how she was doing, a couple of times. However, the interrogator kept that quite close to the chest. When he did tell Benjamin that Megan didn't survive her injuries and that she had died, Benjamin replied, quote, He would admit to stabbing Megan, but stated that he was sleepwalking, and he described it as, quote, a very realistic nightmare. Benjamin Elliott would be arrested and charged with the murder of Megan Elliott. He was released to his parents on bail, and his parents were very sympathetic and supportive of him, and they assured him that they still loved him and they believed his story of him sleepwalking. They did not blame him for what had happened. Both the defense and the prosecution would consult with sleep disorder experts, and both of them had different findings. The defense's expert believed Benjamin's story of him sleepwalking. He had a history of sleepwalking, and they ran some tests on him, and it was found that his REM sleep went to a certain level. I'm not going to try and explain it because I'm not an expert and it really confused me. But this expert believed him, and the Elliott family thought that was it. They hoped and they prayed that this would be enough for the prosecution to drop the charges, but it wasn't. The prosecution's expert didn't believe Benjamin's story. He had stated that he had snapped out of his sleep. He had awoken when he felt the motion of stabbing something, and this expert said, no, that wouldn't happen. To him, that sounded more like a memory, which is something that Benjamin shouldn't have had if he was in such a deep sleep. To this expert, people who are sleepwalking only become aggressive and attack when they're provoked, which is something that Megan obviously wasn't doing because she was asleep in bed herself. Benjamin also had to unsheath the knife, and this expert believed that there was just way too many steps for it to have happened while he was sleepwalking. So Benjamin had to have gotten out of his bed, picked up the knife, unclipped the sheath, pulled the knife out of the sheath, walked to Megan's bedroom, and then stabbed her twice in an area where she would die almost immediately from her injuries. To this expert, it just didn't add up that Benjamin did all of that unknowingly, uncontrollably while he was asleep. There were other things that bothered the prosecution as well. What were the chances that this would happen on the very day that Michael gave Benjamin the knife? Benjamin claimed that he only stabbed Megan once, however there were 2 wounds, so why was he lying? When asked about the pillow over Megan's face, he said that when he snapped out of the sleepwalking, realised that he had stabbed Megan, he grabbed the pillow to put pressure on the wound to stop the bleeding, in order to try and save her. However, like I said earlier, where Megan was stabbed, blood should have sprayed out of that wound, and it didn't. It wasn't found on any of her white bedroom walls that were surrounding her bed. But why didn't it? The prosecution believed that the pillow was put over her face before the stabbing happened, almost as if it was put there to muffle a scream. They didn't like how nonchalant he seemed in the interviews. At one point he was asked where his phone was, and he replied saying, quote, "the crime scene," which they thought was weird because why wouldn't he just say me house or me bedroom or in the sitting room? He said the crime scene. Upon realising that he had stabbed Megan, he didn't immediately go and wake up his parents to try and get their help. Instead he called 911 and he was almost whispering as if he didn't want to wake them up. These things just didn't make sense to the prosecution, and it didn't add up to his sleepwalking story. The only thing that they couldn't figure out was the motive. Why would Benjamin want to murder Megan when by all accounts they had a brilliant relationship? There was nothing going on between the two. But you don't need a motive in order to go to trial, and the prosecution filed their charges against Benjamin, and the trial began in February 2025. Benjamin declined a plea deal, which would have saw him serve 30 years imprisonment. A jury would deliberate for 4 hours before coming back with their verdict. They found Benjamin Elliott guilty of the murder of his twin sister, Megan Elliott. This was a unanimous verdict. The following day he was sentenced. However, some of the jurors did ask the judge to be lenient with his sentencing, and so he was handed a sentence of 15 years imprisonment. This means that he will be released from prison before he is even 30 years old. So, what do you think? Did Benjamin murder Megan while he was sleepwalking, unknowingly, devastatingly not realising what he was doing? Or was that just a story to try and cover up the cold-blooded killing of his own sister? Comment down below and let me know what you think.
Neighbours spotted this 1-year-old boy just wandering alone at the side of the road, and they were like, that's not normal. Alarm bells started to ring, but they had no idea how terrifying things were about to get. It was the 12th of December 2016 in Michigan. On the corner of Plymouth Road and Warwick Street, neighbours rang police. They were like, look, there's this very young child just wandering alone on the side of the road in a nappy, like, where are his parents? Police took in the little baby and put an alert out on the local news, like, if anybody knows who this child is or who he belongs to, let us know ASAP. And it just so happened that the little boy's great granddad spotted this on the news. He was like, what the hell is going on? He rang the police and explained that that was his great grandson. He said his name is Isaiah, and thinking back now, actually, something kind of weird must have happened to his mum. He said, I was supposed to meet her. She's called Nicole. I was supposed to meet her last night and she just never showed up. He said 33-year-old Nicole Smith had made vague plans to meet with him the night before, but she didn't show, and he thought, you know what, that's not too unusual. Sometimes she does have to kind of like pop out to sort her kids out. She actually had 4 children, so she had her hands full. And he said, do you know what, I went and checked out her house. I saw footprints by the side of the door, and I just presumed she must have gone out and forgotten to tell me. Granddad wasn't massively concerned there and then. Now the little boy was wandering on his own, and he was like, what the hell? And then Nicole's friends came forward to police with even more disturbing news. They said that they were aware that Nicole was about to meet a guy she'd met on Facebook. Now, he'd actually seemed very sweet, or at least Nicole thought so, and she was struggling on her own with all of these kids and really dreamed of having a proper family unit. But her family were about to go through 2 entire years having no idea where Nicole even went. I don't know how anyone has the mental strength to go through 2 weeks of that agony, let alone 2 years. But time was running out for one man. Police found that somebody was using Nicole's bridge card. Now, if you don't know what a bridge card is, correct me if I'm wrong, people of Michigan, but I believe it's like a bank card for people with like low incomes. So essentially, families can receive benefits, basically like a card where you can get food and things. Like a voucher type situation. And somebody was using Nicole's. Well, she'd gone missing, and the man using this card was Robert Autry. Why do you have a missing woman's card, Robert? Although this wasn't evidence enough to prove that he'd killed Nicole, he was about to make a horrific confession. He decided to make an agreement with police. If you lessen my sentence, I'll tell you where Nicole is. And everybody held their breath, wondering if this was some kind of sick mind game. Did he really know where Nicole was? Was she alive? He led police to this creepy, abandoned apartment building in Detroit. Honestly, like something out of a horror film. And that's where he showed police to Nicole's remains. And it's even worse than you could imagine. 2015, the year before she was murdered, Nicole suffered a brutal attack. Now, she didn't know who her attacker was. She was knocked unconscious and awed by a mystery man, but he was about to stalk her, hunt her down, and kill her. Robert Autry befriended her on Facebook, made her think she could trust him, made her think that he had good intentions with her. He then lured her to meet with him, murdered her in cold blood, and to add insult to injury, stole from her too. He then dropped her 1-year-old little baby off at a fire station just to fend for himself. Like, honestly, that little boy could have died too. I guess the only kind of saving grace is that he didn't physically hurt the child. And I ended up finding this guy's prison records, and all I can say is I just pray he will not be getting out at all ever, because it turns out he also broke into a woman's home in 2011 and has a charge of criminal sexual conduct. So God knows what he did to her. His earliest release date on file is 2033, which honestly isn't that far away. Like, that's terrifying to me. What do you guys think?
She was snatched off her bike in the middle of the forest and then forced into an underground box where she would suffocate to death. Meanwhile, her parents were receiving sketchy phone calls and horrifying ransom letters. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the case of Ursula Herrmann. This is a shorter version of this case. To hear a fuller deep dive, head over to the True Crime Caitlin podcast. Ursula Herrmann was a 10-year-old girl living in Ehing am Ammersee in Bavaria, Germany. She was described as being like a little ray of sunshine. She always had a smile on her face, she was laughing, she was always happy, she was intelligent, she was energetic, and she had a thing for music. Music was something that she and her brother Michael would really bond over. They enjoyed listening to it and playing it together. And that is exactly what they were doing on the afternoon of the 15th of September 1981. After finishing her first day back at school after the summer break, Ursula went home where she played the piano with Michael for a little bit before heading back out. She would go to a gymnastics lesson in nearby Schondorf, and once that was finished, she went to her auntie's house for a tea and to spend a couple of hours playing with her cousins. Her mother, Mrs. Herrmann, would eventually ring her auntie and ask the auntie to send Ursula home. It was now around about 7:20 p.m. and Ursula was to cycle through a nearby forest and get home for 7:30 p.m. But she never made it. Around about half an hour later, Mrs. Herrmann rang the auntie back up to ask her, can you send Ursula home now, and was shocked to hear that Ursula had already left 25 minutes ago. The journey should have only taken Ursula around about 10 minutes, and so as soon as Mrs. Herrmann heard this, she was worried. Mr. Herrmann and the uncle would both leave their houses on each side of the forest, and they would both walk along the path that Ursula should have cycled down. They both hoped that they would bump into her having either fallen off her bike or was stood talking to a friend. However, she was nowhere to be seen. After doing their own quick search of the forest, the Herrmanns would contact the police to report their daughter missing. Hundreds of officers would descend on the forest, searching nearby the path on foot, and divers even went into a nearby lake. However, it wouldn't be until hours later that they got their first terrifying break. A sniffer dog would discover Ursula's red bike around about 20 metres off of the path, found on the ground upturned. This being a horrifying confirmation that she was gone, and likely someone had taken her, dragging her off the bike. While officers continued their search through the forest, back at the Herrmann home, the phone began to ring, and when one of the parents answered, on the other end, all they heard was silence, a scratching, and then a tune of music. They would get another 7 phone calls exactly like this one, the person on the other side not muttering a single word, and the Herrmanns had no idea what these calls meant, but by the following day, it would become abundantly clear. The postman delivered a letter which was addressed to Mr. Herrmann, and inside there was a ransom note. The person who sent this confirmed that they had kidnapped Ursula and that they wanted what is the equivalent of around about £5 million a day in exchange for her safe return. The Hermans agreed to pay the ransom and they agreed to all of the demands that would come through from the kidnappers. It got to a point where all that they were waiting for was to be told where to drop off the money and when they could get their daughter back, and it was then that the kidnappers went silent on them, ceasing all contact and going cold. It would be on day 19 after her disappearance that Ursula was discovered. During a search in the denser, more isolated part of the forest, one of the searchers would discover a wooden box which was completely buried under the ground. It was a considerably small box. It was about 70 centimeters by 60 centimeters, so imagine a small coffee table. Upon discovering this, the searcher would rip off the lid of the box, and that is where they discovered the body of 10-year-old Ursula Herman looking up to them. It was determined that she would have suffocated to death within 5 hours of being forced into the box. After receiving an anonymous tip, police would set their sights on local man Werner Mazurek. It would take them almost 30 years to gather evidence against this man, and it was almost 30 years later that they felt like they got their golden ticket. During a 2007 search of his home, they would discover a tape recorder. Why is this significant though? An expert believed that this tape recorder was the exact tape recorder that was used during those ransom calls. When the bit of music was being played down the phone to the Hermans, that was from a recording of a jingle from a local radio station. So someone had recorded that jingle and then was playing it down the phone to the Hermans. And this expert was fully convinced that the recorder that was found inside of Werner's home was the exact one. They were able to determine that because it had a misaligned recording head, so different sounds such as scratches and scrapes that Werner's recorder made were consistent with sounds on the ransom calls. That evidence, along with the fact that Werner had a rocky alibi, in fact initially when he was first questioned he couldn't say what he was doing on the night that Ursula was kidnapped. It would take him a full day to come up with a rocky alibi. He said that he was playing board games with his wife at home. So that, along with the testimony of a man who claimed that Werner had hired him to dig a hole in the ground in that dense part of the forest and help transport the box, was enough for the prosecution to build a case and file a charge against Werner Mazurek. He would be arrested, charged, and then fully convicted of the kidnapping resulting in death of Ursula Herman. What should have been a weight lifted off the family members' shoulders turned into more questions for one of the family members, and that was Michael Herman, Ursula's oldest brother. He wasn't fully convinced of Werner's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. 2 separate pieces of DNA were extracted from the box. One came from a piece of duct tape and another from a screw. Neither of these samples matched Werner, who provided a DNA sample. Michael also believed that other avenues of investigation simply weren't investigated, and those key things, along with several other things, made him question Werner's guilt. He didn't know if he was guilty, but he didn't know if he was innocent either. As of today, Werner Mazurek is still serving a life sentence for a crime that he is adamant he did not commit. This is a very detailed, focused case. I have tried to fit in as much as I can in a TikTok video, but if you would like to hear this case in full, including all of the evidence and the other suspects, make sure to go ahead and stream the newest episode of True Crime with Caitlin right now, wherever you get your podcasts.
I think every woman who is a real estate agent ever, or is in the real estate industry in any way, shape, or form, should listen to this case. This is also one of Canada's most disturbing unsolved cases. You may have heard about it, but it's one that definitely keeps me up at night. Lindsay Buziak was the firstborn daughter to her parents Jeff and Evelyn. Eventually her parents made her an older sister when they welcomed their second baby, a baby girl they named Sarah, into the world. Lindsay's father Jeff was a local real estate agent, and as she was growing up it became evident that Lindsay wanted to follow in her dad's footsteps and go into the same industry. Her parents divorced when Lindsay was still little, but their family of 4 managed to remain very, very close. Above anything else, all 4 of them held a lot of love and respect for one another. So her entire life, pretty much, Lindsay had a very people person personality. She had the ability to make friends with anyone. She was very warm and welcoming, and also also a very driven person. She started working when she was only 14 years old, but it was in her early 20s that she began her real estate career in Victoria in British Columbia. And like I said, she was an outgoing person, extremely easy to talk to, also very skilled and knowledgeable. On top of that, her dad was successful in the industry, so Lindsay's future in real estate looked bright. It looked hopeful. She was 22 years old when she got her real estate license, and I want to say that it was within the first year that she managed to reach $3.2 million in volume. So it was very clear that this career path she was going into wasn't only going to be one that she really enjoyed, but it also quickly proved to be one that Lindsay would be very good at. Around 2005, Lindsay got into a relationship with a man called Jason. Jason Zylo. Jason was a mortgage broker and his mom was also in the real estate industry. She worked herself as a successful agent. The Zylo family was a pretty well-known family in the area for being wealthy and successful in the industry, which was so cool for Lindsay because not only was she falling head over heels over this guy, but she also really enjoyed his family and she really respected him and his family's work ethic. And it was really nice because Lindsay could go to either him or his mom Shirley with any questions regarding real estate. By 2007, all was good in her life. Lindsay and Jason were living together in a condo. Work was good, her friends were good, social life was good, love life great. At least that's what people thought. However, towards the end of the year, Lindsay confided in her father and in some of her closest friends that her relationship with Jason was not as good as it seemed. Not because there were really any dangerously alarming red flags, but more so because their personalities just weren't meshing. They weren't getting along. It almost felt like there was something missing, but by 2008, Lindsay was putting a lot of effort in to rekindle their spark and kind of make the relationship fun and exciting again. In late January of 2008, Lindsay Buziak received a phone call. On the phone was a couple and they had an accent. Lindsay later told one of her friends that it sounded like a Spanish or Mexican accent, but she couldn't really make out where the accent was from. She just knew that they were foreign. And on said call, the woman on the phone said that her and her husband were looking urgently to buy a home within the budget of $1 million. The woman said that she was interested in one specific house in the area and she was hoping that Lindsay could make the time to schedule a showing. She said they were on a tight timeline because they just had been relocated for work and they needed to find a place to live ASAP. Lindsay was very eager about the call, obviously, being a newer agent in the industry and having the possibility to be able to sell a house for $1 million. It was huge. But there was just something about the phone call that still left Lindsay feeling a little bit uneasy. First of all, when she asked the woman how she got her phone number in the first place, the woman said that she was referred to her by a friend. Though Lindsay asked the people around her, the people that she had in work and just in her personal life, if anyone knew anything about this mystery lady, this mystery foreign couple, but nobody did. But that was fine. The excitement of it all was still enough for her to want to move forward with the couple as new clients in hopes of finding them their dream home. Lindsay told both her father and her boyfriend about the phone call and she told them that she had agreed to show them the property the next day. On Saturday, February 2nd of 2008, the plan was that she would go show them a house at 5:30 p.m. and afterwards she was going to go to a bachelorette party, meet up with her friends. But because she had never met the clients in person, didn't really know who they were, she was still feeling cautious about the entire thing, and they decided that Jason, her boyfriend, would also go with Lindsay to the showing. So the showing was scheduled for 5:30 p.m. Around 3 p.m., just before, Lindsay went up with Jason. They had lunch together. They got done with lunch around 4:30 p.m. Afterwards, Lindsay went back to their condo to change before the showing, and Jason stopped by a car shop where he met up with a friend. The plan was that he was going to drive to the house that Lindsay was showing to make sure that she was good. He was going to wait outside in his car while Lindsay was doing the walkthrough with the potential buyers, and then afterwards, Jason would go to a hockey game with the one friend that he met up with. Cool. So when his friend meets up with him at the car shop, he gets in Jason's car, and together they drive over to the house to check on Lindsay, make sure that she's fine. They got there a few minutes after the showing started, around 5:40 p.m. Right before the showing started, Lindsay and Jason had been on the phone, but she hung up saying, "Oh, I have to go, they just got here." Witnesses later stated that the couple showed up to the house kind of out of nowhere. They just kind of appeared because it seemed like they just showed up on foot. There was no car parked anywhere. They seemingly did not arrive in a vehicle. They had literally just emerged out of nowhere. But when they met outside, everything looked normal according to the witnesses that saw them. When Jason got there, he remembers seeing a figure of a person through the glass of the house, so he assumed that the showing had already started and that they were all inside. So all three of them, Lindsay, the husband, and the wife. Jason sat outside waiting for around 10 minutes. Then he moved his car to a different area, parked a little bit further away, still closed, but he didn't want to be overbearing with Lindsay. He didn't want to be in the way. So 10 minutes after that, he texted Lindsay to see how it was going. Now it's been around 20 minutes that he's been outside, but he does not get a response. He called her, she didn't answer, so him and his friend decide to get out of the car, walk up to the house to see what was going on. They approach the front door, but it's locked, which is really weird because there should have been absolutely no reason at all as to why the front door would have been locked, and nobody was coming to the door even after they were knocking and ringing the doorbell. So they peek through the window, and then Jason sees Lindsay's shoes on the ground, but no movement in the house. So at 6:05 p.m., Jason calls 911. He fills them in, tells them the situation, tells them that Lindsay was concerned because she had not met the clients in person, because they were from out of town, etc., etc. While he's on the phone with 911, his friend is walking around the back side of the house looking for a different entrance in the house, and he sees the backyard. The door into the backyard was wide open, so he calls for Jason. Jason tells the operator on the line that they found a way in and that they're walking in right before he ends the phone call. His friend walks in through the back, walked inside of the house and to the front door, and unlocked the front door to let Jason in. Both of them are now inside of the house. It's completely silent. They separate to go look for Lindsay. His friend walks downstairs while Jason walks upstairs, and then he sees the master bedroom. He makes his way inside and he finds his girlfriend Lindsay. She was deceased, her body lying in a pool of her own blood. He yelled out to his friend to call 911, which he did. They were frantic when authorities arrived and met them upstairs in the master bedroom, where soon after, Lindsay Buziak would be pronounced deceased. Some reports state that Lindsay had well over 40 separate injuries from a sharp weapon, yet she had no defensive wounds, indicating that the struggle happened out of nowhere, that she was probably approached from the back when she wasn't looking because she had no time to defend herself. It's also believed that she was ambushed within minutes of the showing started, and it's believed that the entire thing happened in only 3 minutes. The house was taped off as a crime scene and the investigation began right then and there. Investigators taped off different areas inside the house while also walking around collecting evidence. Jason and his friend were taken to the station for questioning, but then they were released and ruled out as suspects. Because of the timing, it's believed that everything that happened would have been taking place at the exact same times that Jason and his friend were driving into the cul-de-sac. The timing just didn't really make sense as to how Jason could have done anything, given that he did not arrive until 5:40 when Lindsay was already inside with the clients in the house. But Jason was not the only one out of his family members that would be questioned, because his mother Shirley would be questioned as well. Shirley was apparently very good friends with the developer that built the houses on that specific cul-de-sac. Shirley had also apparently been over at Jason and Lindsay's condo the night before, where Lindsay was telling her all about the showing. Apparently Shirley had offered to do the showing for her after Lindsay had expressed that she was feeling a little bit nervous because she didn't know the clients. But she turned down her offer because it was something that Lindsay wanted to do for herself, and she wanted to work hard and be able to earn that commission on her own. Point being, Shirley was also contacted by the authorities to get more information to see if she had any information or knew anything that could help move the investigation along, but eventually she too was ruled out as a suspect after providing an alibi. I don't know how solid her alibi was, and a lot of people do suspect that Shirley did have something to do with this, but she provided an alibi. Lindsay's passing was so devastating and so confusing because it felt so random yet so targeted at the same time. The next step in the investigation obviously was trying to figure out who this mystery couple was that Lindsay had met up with, because obviously there was more than enough reason to assume that they were the people responsible for doing this to Lindsay. And because there were no fingerprints, no DNA, or really any other physical pieces of evidence left behind in the house, officers had reason to believe that the people who did this knew what they were doing and had done it before, because it felt so well organized and it happened so fast, but nobody could figure out who the husband and the wife, the mystery people, were. Witnesses who saw Lindsay that day standing outside of the house with the man and the woman gave a description of what they looked like to authorities. A witness stating that the woman looked to be white, around the age of 35 to 45, with short blonde hair and wearing a fancy dress. The man was also described as white, around 6 foot, with dark hair and wearing a brown jacket. Investigators turned their attention to the phone, and they found that it was a burner phone that had been used to make that phone call to Lindsay when that woman called. That burner phone had been purchased in Vancouver months prior and had never been turned on or used until she made the phone call to Lindsay. And the phone was activated under the name Paulo Rodriguez, a name that police believed to be completely fake, a made-up person. It was registered to a real business address in Vancouver, but investigators don't think that the business had anything to do with it. They believe that whoever bought the phone likely just picked a real, legitimate address to use, but it had no connection. They looked at the cell phone pings from the phone and they were able to track down the phone's movements, showing that the phone traveled on the ferry from Vancouver to Victoria the day before Lindsay's death. And almost immediately after, the phone was deactivated and never used again. Police believe that this phone was purchased for the sole reason of luring Lindsay in, only adding to their assumption that this had been planned and meticulously organized. Meanwhile, Jason is still working with the authorities, even doing a reenactment with them, showing them exactly where he was, exactly how he walked in, where he was standing, and every movement of his leading up to him entering the master bedroom and finding Lindsay's body. And the investigation continued. Investigators questioned over 1,500 different people, conducted over 30 search warrants, and went down a list of 2,000 different possible person of interest. But when the days turned into weeks and then into months and then into years, Lindsay's family was left feeling hopeless, and it felt like the case was slowly going cold. Later that same year in 2008, something very strange happened. In the middle of the night, Nikki, one of Lindsay's closest friends, was woken up by a phone call from an unknown number. She couldn't remember much of what the woman actually said on the phone call, but the one thing that she noticed was that she had a foreign accent, and her stomach immediately sank, remembering hearing that Lindsay got a phone call from a woman with an accent from an unknown number. Like many people, Nikki believed that the mysterious client, who was a woman with an accent, was the person responsible for ending Lindsay's life. And Nikki was scared, but she wanted to figure out, one, who had called her, and two, how they got her number. She called back the number over and over and over again, 20 times, 30 times, until someone finally picked up. The woman on the phone was Shirley Zalo, Jason's mother. Shirley and Nikki did not know each other, so Nikki is completely thrown off and confused, and she asks why she called and how she got her number. And Shirley's explanation to that was that she too was confused. She claimed that she had been trying to call her secretary, who also happened to be named Nikki, and she had no idea how this Nikki's phone ended up in her phone. Very strange, very confusing. Since her passing in 2008, there's been zero updates really. A lot of people believe that what happened to Lindsay was targeted and that it was organized by someone closest to her, but to this day, the case remains unsolved. And what do we always say when a case is unsolved? Somebody knows something. Like, there isn't another option. Like, it wasn't an accident. There's no question. Someone did this to Lindsay. I don't know. It keeps me up at night, and I feel terribly for Lindsay's family because they have no justice. I mean, how do you find closure in that? Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on this. Let me know if you have heard about this before. Thank you for spending time with me today and for listening to Lindsay's story. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.